everybody. Welcome back to Read the Truth. You know, truth comes first, reasons come last, but we're always and constantly learning. If you stop learning, stop teaching. Reality, stop teaching. Well, today's episode is from a talk I did at the Truth Matters Conference, National Conference for Christian Apologetics, put on by Southern Evangelical Seminary. And I spoke on reclaiming family and culture for Christ and using apologetics in evangelism. That's kind of a subtitle, but we cover 4 profiles, people, and we throw in some other things to show you really in this talk what what we're up against. You know, you're dealing with the same objectives for 6 types of people, and really 5. One has a subgroup in today's talk. They're all asking the same thing. They're all giving the same objection, but really they're asking different questions because they're coming from different points of view. For example, you have the atheist that's more of a linear, logical, philosophical position. Then you have the abused leaver of their faith. That person's been abused. So they're both rejecting God, but for different reasons. So thank you for tuning in. I'm going to do this in 2 parts, so let's get started. Reclaiming culture for Christ. We reclaim our culture by starting with our children, to the family, to the church. Once you reclaim the church, you claim the town, the city. From the city, you take the state. The state, you reclaim the country. And when you claim the country, you reclaim the world. And that's basically how you take back culture for Christ. And that's what we're going to discuss today. And so I want to give this in 3 different basic points. Number 1, welcome to the postmodern age. Postmodernism is defined differently for different people. There's just a lot to it. So I'm going to give you a couple different ways to look at postmodern world. And this is essential. So welcome to postmodern age. Then we're going to talk about 5 case studies. I'm sure every one of us here have probably known somebody in every single one of those categories. It just gives you a better idea and equips you to understand how to reach the different people. Because when you come up to them, right, you don't know where they're coming from. It's the same reason. You're going to ask different questions. And then reclaiming culture for Christ, lastly. So let's get started. Live to tell evangelism for a postmodern age. Brad Kallenberg recounts, and I remember reading this. This is from a long time ago. The basis of I updated the statistics. In the late 70s, evangelical conversion was about 10%, speaking specifically of youth. In 1985, that went about 6 to 7%. And by 1989, the year I went to my very first Bible study, 2%. When I made my video, the guys doing my video, I didn't understand what they're talking about. They're coming up to me going, Steve, it's all in the youth training. It used to be, I was discipled deeply, by one in particular man, Michael Keating, but in groups of other men. But we did Bible study, then we played, then we went to dinner. We didn't go to dinner and sprinkle it in with Bible study. We did Bible study and sprinkle it in with ice skating or whatever else we were doing, okay? The mystery cleared when Kallenberg discovered postmodernism was at the center of the issue, okay? And so we say, gee whiz, this worldview, what does that mean? Postmodernism, good question. Postmodernism, some will say it, I wouldn't say it is deconstructionism, but that's a big part of it, okay? Deconstructionism started with French philosopher, at least officially. I'm sure it would existed since the beginning of time, but Jacques Derrida, 1930 to 2004, insists that the meaning is not inherently objective. Now, once you take objectivity out of everything, you take it out of knowledge, then you have no absolute truth, no moral absolutes, and even any epistemological absolutes or epistemological truth, which says there's no truth in knowledge, So why should I go to your class, and why shouldn't I teach, professor? Cheat on your class, professor. Professor has no answer. Right? Reading and rereading the text. So a lot of times, it's good to reread the text in the Bible. You'll see new truths that have always been there. God just brings them to the light. But these people they believe in reading into things and finding things that just aren't really there. Okay? And so they're making it up. And so that means it's right, it's true for you, but it's not for me. Because, the way it goes. So this is really not deconstruction. It's not really destruction, but deconstruction, but really more so reconstruction. Because don't forget, once you deconstruct, you got to reconstruct, right? And so they make it what they want. Okay, Dr. Geisler used to say, God created us, and I think he quoted someone else, God created us in his image, and we've been returning the favor ever since. Isn't that wonderful, isn't it? It's true, though. okay? And that happens in Scripture too. People will look at and say, oh, that's the Scripture says this. Well, not necessarily. End result is that truth and morality, hence why my first book was on morality, are relatively defined, by, they're considered, remember, no objective truth. So truth is unique to each person. So in my book, I write Eminem. Remember Eminem, the rapper? He goes, well, unless you walked in my shoes, you can't criticize me. So I'm like, okay, so I have to have a mother that is a drug addict prostitute. Okay, so that's what you're saying, in order to criticize you, or to say, Dr. Geisler was asked once, I was in class, and this is what he said: God does not have to experience rape to say that it's wrong. Okay? Postmodern holds that there's just different truths for each person, and different, and there's different morality for each person, right? I mean, and it's like Muslims will have their own morality. Now, ultimately, there's one morality that governs mankind, but on earth, each subgroup, ethnicities, will have their own. If you go to the hood, they have their own morality, right? And so if you go to Islam, they have their own. Even in the gay community, they have their own morality. There's no objective or absolute truth or reality, morality in reason. Here's the deal. And this is good. I was interviewing. Anybody ever watch anything by Kirby Anderson? So Kirby Anderson, he used to speak at our conferences like 20 years ago. So young people are, who's that? Yeah, all right, enough of that. But so Kirby interviewed. He's got a ministry out of Texas. It's pretty well received around the world, I guess, in the country. And he said, he goes, he's interviewing me, and he goes, well, Steve, give me an example of relativism. Like, what can you say about that? And I said, well, you come into my house, and you smell. My wife makes wonderful apple pie. It's just pretty killer. You come in around the holidays and you're, that's delicious. You say, Mr. Gearfallo, where's the bathroom? Just go down here, make a left refrigerator. It's on the right-hand side. And then to your horror, you turn the light on. It's an apple-scented air freshener. Now, if you want to be relative, right, if you want to impress me and you want me to come to the side of relativism, well, then it's going to entail that you eat the plastic air freshener, because it's really apple pie to me. And then we'll talk about it, right, after you're dead. But, so, yeah, you could see how relatives, no one's really relativist. I mean, Hinduism subscribes to relativism. The problem with that is that no one's really, even the Hindu's not really a relativist, right? They don't walk out in the middle of, in New Delhi during traffic and close their eyes and say, I'm not going to get hit by a car. It's all relative. That's what's going to happen. No. But this is an interview by Carl Tuckerson. And I want you to listen to what he has to say, because I found it fascinating, and I have two clips from this gentleman. But he's talking about the fact of our young people today, and even us. When I started at SES, I used to teach at the Institute of Biblical Studies that Dr. Geisler set up on Sunday nights. People would sit for 90 minutes. They wouldn't even get up to go to the bathroom. Try to hold anybody for an hour. How about a half an hour, right? It's hard. Attention spans with YouTube shorts and everything. What he's saying is that it's hard to discern truth in our age because the internet. I grew up with books. You grew up with books. I grew up with parents and uncles and aunts and grandparents that built into me truth. You have a whole generation of kids that have parents outside the home. They have grown up digitally. When you grow up digitally, you have masses of pretty much their foundation is what's on the web. That's it. And so that's all they have to draw. Like, I could watch something on the web, but I still know what my parents taught me. I still know what I read out of a book. I still know it's from a culture that valued truth. Okay? Now listen to what he says, and he makes the point here that in today's age, one of the problems is that people are getting overwhelmed. In the younger generation, they literally don't even have it. They don't have a foundation to draw from. They don't. They have only the digital. And so how do they discern what is truth in having been raised in this digital age? And listen to what he says.
And it's even worse because it starts abstracting away people's understanding of reality. Your epistemology is fundamentally broken when you rely on an AI search engine to bring you the truth. And as somebody who was teaching high school not that long ago, I've already seen it with just the dumber versions of Google. No children have any context for any decision they're making. They don't, again, as we talked about, they don't have a link to history. They don't have a link to tradition. They don't have religion that informs anything. All the knowledge they have is what's delivered to them digitally in that search. That's what they believe to be authoritative in every area. And so when you see that over and over again, you realize the individual is going to have no decision-making power because they don't even have organic experiences in real life to draw knowledge from. All they have is the digital world that's been served to them through AI.
So if you're older like me, you imagine censorship as the threat to speech, right? So there are all kinds of things that are true that are being said now on the internet right now that are like an actual threat to the way things are. So they have to be shut down. I mean, I'm just operating on that assumption. And they will be shut down, but they won't be censored. They'll be overwhelmed by AI. That's my guess.
One of the things you can do is just flood the zone. You can flood the signal so that there's no way to pick out the truth from the vast amount of information that's flowing over you, or you can curate the environment properly through AI on a consistent basis to where people don't even realize that the environment's being curated in the first place. Either way, as you say, you don't have to do hard censorship. The information's out there somewhere if you're one of those radical extremists who is thinking for yourself and looking into any of this stuff. But for the vast majority of people who are never going to put that kind of effort into it, that's not the way they're going to see the world. That's not how they're going to receive information.
Flooding the zone. That's really the issue. There's so much out there, so much out there for us. I don't know if you remember that commercial on TV before. The guy goes, I made it to the end of the internet. Remember, I've seen everything. That's pretty funny. That was great. So welcome to the postmodern age. Gives you some idea of what we're up against, I think, in all 5 categories or profile cases, which I'm going to discuss with you now. So let's take a look at the first one. Excuse me. Is the postmodern drifter, okay? Number 2, the abused leaver of the Christian faith. And it doesn't have to be someone who's never even left. It could be someone who never came to Christ in the first place. Third is the modern atheist, which I think the Apologetics Conference has been addressing for years, which is actually the minimum thing, right? Because you have neo-pagans and then the rebel. And there's 2 kinds, the moral and the spiritual. Here's the point. We keep saying, we come at it from this apologetics. I want to argue with you. Not really that you only got 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 6 categories. You're arguing wrong. You're not asking the wrong questions. You may need to have more empathy, right? Instead of just going at it, understanding where they come from. If we're going to be effective in reaching or reclaiming culture, we have to know who we're speaking to, okay? So while they may ask the same questions, it's not what they're asking, but why they're asking those questions. First, let's look at the postmodern drifters, okay? Often raised in Christian homes. It's amazing. If you Google the phrase, why I left Christianity, you're going to find over, and this has probably been updated, you're going to find over 140 million results. 2024 Religious Identification Survey, usually put on by Barna, the percentage of Americans claiming to be nuns, right? 28 to 34%. Now, it's interesting to see over the next year or 2, people are coming back to God, especially New Age. I'm going to bet that number, at the very least, is not going to move up. I'm going to be, if anything, I think it's going to come down a bit. Okay? I don't know how much. But here's the deal. When they did these surveys, you realize the Bible Belt's not exempt. It's just the same amount in South Carolina it is in South New York. It is. Postmodern drifters are often raised in Christian homes. The Rayner research said 70% of youth leave the church by 22 years old. Moral compromise is often the factor. Our universities are absolutely despicable moral places, but by the same token, we can't just leave them alone. That's all we have. My kids, we have conditioned to go to the university. We've made them battle-hardened, discerning people. My daughter's in Virginia Tech. By God's grace, her roommate is the daughter of the guy who was in Bible study with in 1992. Talk about God. Yeah, studying architecture, landscape architecture. My daughter's doing design. Here's a point. You have 2 girls, and they're questioning each other. All right, what do you think about boys coming into the room? No boys, no alcohol, no drugs, none of that stuff. I'm like, that's a gift from God, right? But my daughter also grew up in the world of ballet, so she knows how to navigate, those waters. Now, my son, he went to work for Chick-fil-A, and, he's It was a great learning experience for him to work with people who are Christians, people who are not Christians, and people who claim to be Christians or seem to be Christians, but they're not really Christians. So you have to let him into that world, man, and he'll go to UNCC, So life experiences. So why are these kids leaving? Well, life experiences often mold them. Even if you look at the homosexual community, the percentage of first sexual encounter is, depending on girl boy, going to be between 82 and 90%, something like that, of the same sex. Just saying. Does that prove anything? Not rock solid, but it certainly gives you an idea as to people's experiences mold their choices, okay? Result is cognitive dissonance. You're seeing this all over the news, I'm telling you. You see this when on all the Antifa interviews, they keep talking about cognitive dissonance. And I'm like, yeah, rightfully so. It's basically a bipolar battle for the mind. So they get here, you raise them as Christians, you send them to the university, they discover sex or boyfriend or love or girlfriend or, whatever it is, alcohol. And then they just say, this is really a lot of fun. I got to make a choice. Am I going to live for Christ? And in the moment, they're there. And listen, if you have candy or a bologna sandwich or whatever, some meal, you're going to choose the candy if you're 18 years old and you know no better. So they have to restore mental harmony by dropping one or more beliefs. This guy was the lineman, Chip Seraphin. This is from 2014. He said it was really personal for me. He was the first gay, second, I can't remember. He's football. He was the first football, not NFL, but I think it was college. I can't remember. I'm not a football guy. So I have no idea. I was going to put it on the slide, but anyways, he said it was really personal for me, and it benefited me, my peace of mind, greatly. He said. So he came out. He was gay. He didn't come out, and then he came out. But why? Because he had this choice to make, right? He had to decide, am I going to come out or not? Well, if we didn't think it was morally wrong, according to the Bible, why would we have any issues with coming out, right? You could say, well, it'll be social pressure of people, okay? Cognitive dissonance. Now, engaging in the postmodern drifter. This is how we engage with them. You don't argue. That's a thing of the past. You're not going to get very far. I would say that's generally true of this generation. Connect. Research shows, and I love this, young people who have older people in their lives are way less likely to wander. They are. I was very close with my grandpa and my grandma. And my dad passed young, but I had two older brothers, younger sisters. I mean, man, my family was, my dad's from Italy. I mean, we're like glue. I mean, you, Tony, you don't know anything about that. He's Italian. But your respect of the family and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, by having older people in your lives makes a big difference. Many drifters will admit, by the way, that they still pray for protection. They may say boo-hoo, but they're still praying. So what are they praying to? That's number one. Number two is the abuse leaver. So the leaver is the person who left for emotional reasons. Now, I cricket Krista. So I was in my 20s, and I don't think that I ever even saw a TV program on abuse. And this girl I met her in church, and she had been sexually abused. And boy, did I get a lesson on that. It was very difficult. I mean, it tore me up, because if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to tear you up. They're basically like drowning people in many cases. And if they don't have a good grip, and everyone's different, but sometimes if you're not going to save them, I had a little side business, and then I had a job, and I took the money from the side business, and I put her in counseling. I went to the counselor, said, how long is it going to take to fix this? And she started laughing. She goes, Steve, you don't understand. She goes, this is not an automobile. And so I heard it said, it's like retaining their faith is like swimming upstream against current painful memories of abuse. You see, outside God is our parents as the next authoritative figure. So when you're abused, especially by a family member or by anybody older than you, it breaks the trust with them. And well, if it breaks the trust with them, that breaks the link with God. They can't trust anybody. So, suffered abuse will never, they'll say they don't want to take another chance again, okay? So how do you engage with them? Number one, you don't joke. Some people, I joke a lot, but I don't joke about things like this. But, they're watching you. They're going to watch what you do more than even what you say. And my pastor, I went to sit with him, Lon Solomon, he used to be pastor. It's before McLean Bible was huge. It ended up at 50,000 people. I was there when it was 800. So I sat down and I make an appointment with him. When he made appointments, I said, Lon, I told him the story. He goes, Steve, I'm not a counselor. That's what he said. He goes, but welcome to a whole new world of people. That's what he said. But it was helpful because it's basically what he was telling me is, this is, you're not going to, it's kind of like having one leg, right? You have to learn. I tell my kids when something bad happens, if it's a permanent thing, you just have to learn how to live with it. There's no other option, right? Be aware they're watching you more than they're listening to what you say. Be there. Be careful not to get too caught up. As I said, they'll drown you. I was scuba diving years ago, and they put me, I was out with my wife, we were in the Florida Keys, and they put her with a different group of 3, and they put me with this guy. Lo and behold, he was really, really overweight, and he asked for 42 pounds. Anybody dive here? 42 pounds of weight. Now, give you an idea, I'm diving with 4 pounds, okay? And we go under, there was heavy current, and I just couldn't get the compass. You have to look at the boat, and you have to gauge. For some reason, I've never had it that bad. I'm gauging, you have to start here, and if here, and I kept overshooting. And so, long story short, we got up, and he had dropped his weight belt. And I could see it because it's crystal clear. It's like bathtub water. And I said, did you do that on purpose? He goes, no. It's I was trying to adjust my, so I go down and get it. I had to put air in my vest to get up. Long story short, I said, you need some help? I can use some help. As soon as I got near him, he went to jump on me. And I was a lifeguard. I learned never get that close to a person. And I kicked him right in the gut with fin and all. And I said, listen, if someone's going to die here today, it's going to be you, just so we understand the score, because I'm going home to my wife. I will help you. So I had to call distress signal. Anybody who dies know that the last thing you want to do is this, because they have to leave everybody underwater. You get a propeller spin in, people underwater, and they were there, I'm not joking, they were there, anchor up in less than 40 seconds. And they got them out of the water, and I was the last guy out of the water, and we got up, and it was just quiet. And I'm like, hey, how you guys doing? Because I didn't hear anything. And he goes, you're a darn good diver. And my wife goes, man, he was cursing you from one end to the other. So lastly, but here's the point. I think that's the reason why I tell you the story is because that's what it's going to be like if you try to save an abused person. You have to just draw lines and work with that, okay? Ask questions. Help to lead them to the true God, who's the one and only who they can trust, okay? Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you subscribe and you like this. And because part 2 is coming up, I broke this. This was 42-minute talks. I broke it up into 2 talks and edited it down a bit. So make sure you tune in next time. And do me a favor, if you want, join my community at StephenGarofalo.com. Love to see you over there. Lots more resources. And it's free of charge. There's a paywall. You can get around it if you'd like, or you can support us at $5 a month. That will get you the podcast actually 1 to 3 days early. Lots of other things. God's blessings to you. We see you over at the community, and we'll see you at the next episode. You know what I say. I'm your host, Stevie Garofalo, and this is your Reason of Truth for today.